Good morning. It is our pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the 2021 Victoria's Vital Signs. We would like to start by respectfully acknowledging the Lekwungen-speaking people of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations whose traditional lands the Victoria Foundation offices are located on. I'm Stacey Ross.
And I'm Joe Perkins. This is now the second year you're joining us for a virtual launch, and while we wish we could gather and celebrate in person, we have put together a wonderful online program here for you today. We know you'll enjoy.
There'll be a little bit of music, a little bit of dancing, some lively discussions with some of our region's most insightful minds, and of course, a look at the 2021 Vital Signs Report, plus an extra exciting announcement.
As your hosts this morning, it is our job to welcome you to this online event and introduce our guests. But before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge our hosts for this morning, the board, staff, and volunteers of Victoria Foundation, and in particular, CEO Sandra Richardson and the entire Vital Signs team.
And to kick off this celebration, I would like to invite one member of the Victoria Foundation family, incoming board chair Rajiv Gandhi, to say a few words.
On behalf of the Victoria Foundation and as the incoming board chair, I'd like to extend a welcome to the launch of Victoria's 2021 Vital Signs and offer thanks to our sponsor, Coast Capital Savings, for their generous and ongoing support. Vital Signs is an annual initiative offering a snapshot of the overall health of our community, a temperature check for Greater Victoria. There's been considerable discussion over the past few years about the need for truth, reconciliation, and accountability. The Victoria Foundation office sits on lands traditionally occupied by the Lekwungen-speaking people, and we strongly support efforts to promote healing, growth, and prosperity for Indigenous peoples living in Victoria and on Vancouver Island. A key focus of this year's Vital Signs is a renewed commitment to principles of equity and inclusion. By examining data and considering lived experiences, we hope to recognize progress that we as a community have made and identify areas where more is required. The Victoria Foundation hopes that you will find this program insightful, informative, and inspiring.
Rajiv, thank you so much. It is now our great delight to start our program with a dance performance from a young woman who moved to Canada 6 years ago, and she combines Indian dancing with hip-hop to create a fusion of physical performance. Please welcome Samiksha Narula.
धूप से निकल के छाँव से फिसल के हम मिले जहाँ पर लम्हा थम गया
आसमां पिघल के शीशे में ढल के जम गया तो तेरा चेहरा बन गया
दुनिया भुला के तुमसे मिला हूँ निकली है दिल से ये दुआ रंग दे तुम मोहे गेरुआ राजे की दिल से है दुआ रंग दे तुम मोहे गेरुआ
निकली है दिल से ये दुआ
रंग दे तुम मोहे गेरुआ
और लड़के कहाँ से आया है रे तू प्यारा है शक्ल से अकल का मारा है रे तू लड़के और लड़के कहाँ से आया है रे तू प्यारा है शक्ल से अकल का मारा है रे तू
हाँ चल गई मेरी बातों से तू जल गई हाँ खल गई तुझे खल गई मेरी बेपरवाही खल गई ओ तरवा तू किस खेत की मूली है जरा पता
टीवी पे ब्रेकिंग न्यूज हर मेरा घाघरा है बगदाद से लेके दिल्ली आगरा टीवी पे ब्रेकिंग न्यूज हर मेरा घाघरा बगदाद से लेके दिल्ली आगरा हर मेरा घाघरा
Hi, I'm Tom Burley with Oakrest Park Estates, and I'm a former chair of the Victoria Foundation, so I've supported the foundation for years. We like to support Vital Signs in particular because it allows the foundation to fulfill its mandate to be a leader in the charitable sector in the community and to inform the entire region on the needs in that sector. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Neil Chappell,
And I'm Graham Eisniger.
and we're the Blue Heron Advisory Group of CIBC Wood Gundy.
And we think Victoria's Vital Signs is important because as a community, we need to agree on what our problems are as we move towards solutions.
TechNet supports Victoria's Vital Signs because of the magic they do to support the quality of life in our community. At TechNet, we may not be musicians, but we're definitely IT wizards. We provide unbelievable IT support to the business community.
Samiksha, thank you for that wonderful performance, and to the Vital Signs sponsors for your ongoing support. Now, joining us today to dig deeper into the Vital Signs theme of equity and inclusion are local writers and subject matter experts who are here for a series of conversations with Joe. Now, our guests are here today providing their perspective on the topic of equity and inclusion. Therefore, the messaging in the discussion does not necessarily reflect the thoughts of the Victoria Foundation, the program sponsors, or other partners. This is a process of listening and understanding the lived experiences of others in our community, which will help to bring more understanding, connection, and change. Let's go to the first of those conversations now.
Thank you very much, Stacey. With me now are Dr. Fred Hsu, Assistant Professor in the Department of Educational Psychology and Leadership Studies at the University of Victoria, and Charlotte Huber, Director of Communications and Indigenous Relations for McCullough Housing Society and a weekly columnist with the Times Colonist. In the Vital Signs report, we see that 58% of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, those respondents to the survey say they feel included in this community, 58%. We'll start with you. How do we get that number higher?
Well, I think before we think about how do we get that number higher is we need to acknowledge that 58% is a large number of people who do feel included. And I also feel that we should be focusing on everyone in the community because someone, regardless of their culture and their background, all have the same wishes and desires at the end of the day, which is to feel safe and supported and have friends and be included.
And Fred, what's holding us back as a community from getting that number higher?
I think it really has to, I think we have to, first of all, there's 42% also that don't feel like they belong. And so I can't speak on behalf of the 42%. I think it's important to really ask them about their experiences and what are things that are, potentially working, and still is 58%. There are things are working in our community, and that's wonderful. And there's 42% of those who don't feel like they belong. And I think it's important to draw from their knowledge and their wisdom and their experience to help kind of shape and kind of understand ways that we can improve those numbers.
Charlotte, we've seen in recent months and years a swell of support for social justice movements. We've seen more Asian hate crimes. You look in the U.S., the death of George Floyd. I'm wondering if you think these movements that we've seen have changed anything long-term in this community.
I think they have changed things in our community long-term. I know in my work in Indigenous relations and in Indigenous communities for a long time, I would always be saying that it shouldn't just be Indigenous people standing up for Indigenous rights. And now with these changes, we do see people looking at other groups of people that they may not be a part of, but wanting to step up and help support and be allies. And I think that that's really good. I think also sometimes with this, we're having like a cancel culture coming out, and a lot of people may be hearing misinformation and then deeming that misinformation as truth. So I think these movements have done some good, but I think we also need to make sure we're educating ourselves and doing our research before we're jumping in on these things.
Fred, what did you see in terms of reaction locally from the global movements? I mean, the global movements were covered around the world. Everybody knows about them. But here in Victoria, at the local level, what sort of reaction did you see?
I can only, I want to kind of preface this that most of my experience living here in Victoria has been during a pandemic. So like there's some limitations in terms of what I've seen. And I could also speak mainly about my experience working with students. And I've seen kind of this consciousness raising and a desire to really kind of assess, how do we deal with issues of racism adequately in a ways that's more thought out, that's more humanizing. And so I think there's a bit of a self-reflection that's happening, and I think that's an important thing. but there's also a desire to create change, and there's also, I guess, there's almost this also an impatience too, because I think there's a reality that there are challenges and issues that are there that still continue to persist.
You mentioned students. Do you think they will be the leaders in ushering in progress in our community? Do you think they're at the forefront, or is it someone else?
I think it's everyone, actually. I think students, I think they're in a position where they're constantly having to assess and reflect about their worldviews, and are in really prime positions to create some really significant changes in our society. But I don't think it's just the students. It's all of us. It's myself as a professor creating space for students as well. It's everyone in different roles. So I think these are huge problems and huge issues, but it requires everyone working together.
And Charlotte, there's other people. I mean, like you said, Fred, we're all involved in this, but we can look at politicians, you can look at municipal leaders, City Hall. Everyone has a role to play. And the people watching tonight, if you want to call them the average residents in our city, do they have a role to play, Charlotte?
I think we all have a role to play in this and working towards making a more inclusive and equitable community. Clearly, our community leaders have larger platforms where they should be stepping up and making these changes, but I think each and every one of us can make these changes. In my column in the Times Colonist, I often write about Indigenous issues and my experience as an Indigenous person, and I receive many, many emails from readers saying, what can I do? And I think sometimes people are too nervous to make a mistake or feel like they might be overstepping. But I think the biggest thing is to just be an ally and support and ask questions and find out how you can do that in a meaningful, respectful way.
Charlotte, Fred, thank you for the chat.
Thank you, Joe, and our panelists for that really thought-provoking conversation. Looking forward to more. We will have 2 more discussions as our program continues. But now it is my pleasure to introduce the presenting sponsor for this year's Vital Signs Report, Coast Capital, and my friend Tanya Smith to say a few words about their ongoing support.
Hello, I'm Tanya Smith, Social Purpose Ecosystem Manager at Coast Capital. Coast Capital is honored to once again partner with the Victoria Foundation as the signature sponsor of Vital Signs. As a purpose-driven member-owned financial cooperative and a certified B Corporation, we know that as we all work collectively to create a community with hope and empowerment for all, access to trusted sources of information that reflect a diversity of community perspectives is more important than ever. I'd like to acknowledge everyone at the Victoria Foundation for your hard work and for your leadership in creating even more space for a diversity of perspectives in the survey this year. We value our partnership as we work collectively to build a better future together.
CREST supports Victoria Vital Signs because it provides us insight into what's important to residents and how they're feeling about those quality indicators. That information is critical in developing action plans and programs to improve our communities.
We at Country Grocer support Victoria Vital Signs Report because much like us, they're all about local, affordability, and sustainability. Within that report, you'll find all those things, and we at Country Grocer love to support all that.
Hi, my name is Sean Heffernan and I'm with Urban Systems. We support Vital Signs Victoria because it gives us an indication of the health, vitality, and sustainability of our community. And particularly because Urban Systems sponsors the transportation section of Vital Signs, gives us and our clients an understanding of how we move through the region.
Thank you, Tanya. Great to see you. And our other sponsors, thank you as well. Your generous support makes this essential community resource possible. And now, I'd like to invite back Joe and 2 of our panelists to continue our conversations around equity and inclusion in our region.
Thank you, Stacey. With me now is Brishti Basu, a journalist with Capital Daily here in Greater Victoria, and Michaela Yan, a community organizer and counselor. We're talking about equity and inclusion. When asked in the Vital Signs survey, 95% of respondents said they're accepting of people from different backgrounds. Brishti, we'll start with you. Does that high of a number ring true for you?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you ask anyone whether they're accepting of other people, they're very likely to say yes. But I think the bigger question is, what does acceptance mean to that person? Are they just tolerating the presence of BIPOC people in the room, or will they truly see you as a person if you're different? So I think that is the bigger question there.
Michaela, is Greater Victoria, in your opinion, a welcoming place and a safe region for people of diverse backgrounds?
Yeah, I find that question really interesting, that it's a yes or no when there's so much nuance in terms of what people's social locations are, their race, their ethnicity, their skin tone, their gender and ability, and all that, as well as the context that they're in, their geographic location within Victoria, the workplaces that they're in. I don't think there is a yes or no question to that when there's so many different factors.
If you dig a bit deeper into the survey, 23% of people, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, said that they don't feel safe in the city of Victoria. 23%, 1 in 4 people. Brishi, do you think there's a reason behind this? Why do you think they're saying that they don't feel safe?
Yeah, there have been a couple of reports that kind of highlighted this better than I can articulate, but there's not a lot of overt racism in Victoria. You get the rare incident here and there, but what a lot of people do feel is microaggressions. So things like someone mocking your relative's accent or making a face at a food that you grew up eating, or things like that can really make people feel like they're outsiders and they're not welcome.
And many times, do you think people even know that they're being racist? That it's happening?
Not often, no. That's why it's microaggressions, right? Like people don't realize that their words can hurt.
And Michaela, if there's one thing that you suggest we do to fix this and make Greater Victoria a more inclusive place, what is it?
Yeah, I'd like to challenge us to dream a little bit bigger than inclusion. If our systems are hurting people, how can we liberate ourselves in a way that, you know, our communities are taking care of each other and that we have the resources we need? So the one thing I would say is to defund the police and reallocate that money to building the things that we have to take care of each other in a really meaningful way.
All right, Michaela, thank you for your time. And Brishti, we'll chat with you a bit later.
Thanks, Joe.
Of course, the reason we're all together for this launch today is the release of the 2021 Victoria's Vital Signs Report, which over the past 16 years has become a valuable community resource. It's used by residents, businesses, nonprofits, and community leaders alike to learn the latest about how our region is doing. Now, this year, there is an exciting new addition to the Vital Signs program, and I'd like to invite Sandra Richardson, CEO of the Victoria Foundation, to tell you all about it.
Thank you, Stacey and Joe, and thank you everyone for joining us. For 16 years now, Victoria's Vital Signs has provided our community with essential information about what's working in our region and where we need to improve. The 2021 Vital Signs Report is available to you now, combining data with the insights of nearly 4,000 surveyed residents to provide a snapshot of the health in our region. It's an illuminating read with new information on our region's resilience through the ongoing pandemic, and a special focus on our theme of equity and inclusion, including reconciliation. These are all issues of deep importance to the Victoria Foundation. We're excited for you to read the full report, which is available in locations throughout our community or online at victoriafoundation.ca. New to this year, we're thrilled to announce the launch of the Vital Victoria digital platform. This online companion piece to Vital Signs provides interactive data on our quality of life in our region. It also features demographics, new information on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and a series of feature articles on this year's theme of equity and inclusion. We're certain Vital Victoria will prove to be an essential community resource for years to come, and we can't wait for you to take a look. Please visit the site today at victoriafoundation.bc.ca/vital-victoria. I'd like to thank our sponsors, and especially presenting sponsor Coast Capital, for your support. Thank you to our panelists today for your invaluable insights. And thank you, everyone, for your continued participation in the Vital Signs program and your ongoing support of the Victoria Foundation.
Sandy, thank you so much. I truly can't wait to read through the report and visit this exciting new website as well to learn even more about our community. Congratulations. It's truly an accomplishment. I would now like to invite back Joe and our panelists for our final conversation of the program. Take it away, Joe.
Thank you, Stacey. Charla and Brishti are back with me for another discussion. The three most important issues in our community, as identified by survey respondents, are the cost of living, housing, and homelessness. And Brishti, I'll start with you. How do you think these issues relate to equity and inclusion in our community?
Thanks, Joe. I think that equity and inclusion, no matter how you look at it, is kind of intertwined in every aspect of society. With respect to housing, the barriers that face, let's say, newcomers to Canada, housing is obviously one of them in Victoria because of the crazy rental market here. I recently found out that when my parents lived here in 2003, they were paying $1,200 for a one-bedroom on Gorge Road, and that's just too expensive for 2003. But they didn't have access to information and resources that could help them find a better place.
And imagine what that one bedroom is now. I mean, it's probably, yeah, double that at least. Charlotte, what do you think the most important issue is in our community?
Well, definitely, I think housing and cost of living is really important. I've worked in the affordable housing sector for the past 7 years. And I think right now, housing and affordable housing is important, but also affordability of owning homes is important. And then also when we're adding in that inclusion piece in our communities, it's really making sure we're diversifying our neighborhoods, that we're not just having high income neighborhoods and low income neighborhoods. And there's a lot of affordable housing projects now that are working where there's having different rental rates for different people's financial brackets. And then that way you don't know exactly how much income someone makes.
Let's flip the conversation. What's working, Brishti? I mean, what's drawing people to our community?
Victoria is a beautiful city. It's a beautiful place to live. It's got great climate, better than a lot of other parts of Canada. I know for myself, when I was first looking for universities to go to, Canada and Victoria in particular was very attractive to me because in international coverage and the way that people perceive Victoria outside of Canada, it's shown as a very inclusive, very safe place for immigrants and for people of color to be.
Charlotte, are you hoping that we can do better in terms of equity and inclusion? And if we can do better, how?
Well, I think we can always do better. I think we should never think that we're always doing our best. And when we're being more inclusive and inclusive to people of different backgrounds and races and genders, as well as incomes, and just making sure that for someone to have a home, that is the first step to helping everything else fall in place. And if someone doesn't have a home that's affordable or safe, then everything else in their life will be struggling too.
And Brishti, I'll ask you the same thing. I mean, if there's one thing that we can do better as a community to promote equity and inclusion, is there one thing? It's probably a bit more complicated than that, but is there one thing?
If it were up to me, I would find a way to kind of mandate diversity and inclusion training for every school, every workplace. I mean, it all starts with acknowledging that there's a problem first and then finding ways to fix it. Starting that conversation everywhere possible is, I think, the next step.
Brishti and Charlotte, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Hi, my name is Maya Scott, and I'm the Employer Care Benefit Specialist for Boost Scott. We support Victoria's vital signs because it gauges where the community is at as far as issues that are critical to all of our well-being. It's important more than ever that as leaders we understand these issues, establish baselines on what can be addressed, and set to work ensuring that we can all enjoy and experience a sense of belonging and safety in our community.
The Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce supports Vital Signs in Victoria because it represents where we've been, where we are, and more importantly, where we need to go to address the issues that face us as a culture every single day.
Joe, thank you so much, and thanks to all of our panelists today for your insights and, again, your passion for our community, one that we love so much. As Sandra mentioned earlier, each of our panelists contributed a feature article for this year's Vital Signs program. Now, all of those can be found at victoriafoundation.bc.ca/vital-victoria. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this launch. We so appreciate your time and your commitment to our community. Without you, the report wouldn't be possible. And of course, thank you to the Victoria Foundation for Vital Signs and everything else you do for our region. You do so much, and we so appreciate you. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, to close our program, we have one more performance for you. Saria Lesh is an internationally recognized violinist, classically trained in Damascus. And before the war broke out in Syria, he toured Europe and the Middle East with the Syrian National Symphony Orchestra. Sari arrived in Canada in February 2016 and has since been focused on playing music again and building his life in his new country. Please enjoy. And on behalf of Joe Perkins and myself, thank you so much.